Ready, Helen? All right. It's 2:00. I'm going to call the town council work session for May 13th, 2025 to order. We're going to start with planning commission decisions. Okay? Decisions.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Great. Moving on to legislative review, ordinance approving nicotine flavor ban, second reading.
Good afternoon, Mayor Owens and Town Council. Before you for second reading is a revised retail tobacco business licensing ordinance, which as discussed on the 25th of March, as well as the 8th of April, will prohibit the sale of flavored nicotine tobacco products, as well as prohibition on the sale of discounts on the sale of tobacco products. No changes have occurred since first reading on this ordinance. However, would let you know that Shannon and I have met with a number of lobbyists that were not keen on this change, this prohibition, largely representing a number of the convenience retailers around town and throughout the state, and we're discouraging moving forward with this. So that was one of the things that we wanted to pass along to you. But like I said, there have been no changes to the ordinance, substantive changes since first reading.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Scott?
Scott, did any of those lobbyists' comments resonate with you guys at all?
Yes, I guess in some ways. Some people just saying, number one, well, you're taking away options for adults to make choices into these things. So people have also suggested that any kind of flavored, reducing the sale or prohibiting the sale of flavored nicotine or tobacco products may not help people get off of kind of traditional tobacco, if you will, cigarettes or.
Did they happen to say what's going to help them get off flavored tobacco products?
No, they just no, and I felt like it was more of a laissez-faire. You let adults make their own decisions and enforce the rules that are on the books, as well as there was one comment about being data driven. In other words, use the Colorado Healthy Kids survey, and so if it gets over a certain threshold, then maybe consider a prohibition. But in the meantime, it's been declining, and therefore this is unnecessary. Was kind of the message. Is that accurate?
Thanks.
And I assume they know they could come and speak to us if they wanted to.
Yes. Yep. They were informed of that.
And along
They
those
came for
lines, you met with all the business owners, local business owners, and the folks that wanted to meet, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a local business owner on the last call that we had with the, I guess, lobbyist. And other than that, we met with anyone who wanted to meet, but we didn't get a lot of outreach from our businesses other than that one individual.
And other than that, mostly trade representatives, trade group representatives.
Okay. Any other questions? We're ready to move into second reading tonight. All right, great. Thank you very much. Cucumber Creek Estates Extended Vesting Development Agreement, first reading. Chris?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For your consideration tonight, we do have the first reading of the extended vesting for Cucumber Creek Estates. It's really the same as what was presented in February of the work session to extend the current subdivision vesting until January 9th, 2031, which is an additional 5 years to the current vesting. Really, there's no considerable public commitment other than what was presented in the past, which is really to just give them the opportunity to not develop the parcel, just kind of push that down the road longer. There is a right of first offer as requested by the council at the work session included. But other than that, we just had a fairly detailed memo here in the packet, so I'll be happy to answer any questions related to that memo.
All right, any questions related to the memo? And then we also have the two questions of, do we support amending the development agreement? And do we support the terms in the development agreement? Anyone wanna?
I want to thank you for getting the right of first offer in the development agreement. I think that is beneficial if one day that comes to fruition. I do support the amendment for the development agreement with the applicant and the term that went from 3 to 5 years. So thank you again for doing that as well.
Anything else?
I think it's great that it was a proactive reach out to us to get this done. And I echo Jay's compliment about getting the right of first offer into this agreement, which is a substantial gain for us, I think, in the overall agreement, which was already in place.
Yeah, and I reinforce what my colleagues have said and encourage staff and open space staff to keep an open dialogue with the principals of this property.
Okay, so are we supportive, ready to move forward? Looks like it. Okay, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Tim, for the work and proactive. on
Thank you.
this.
See you tonight.
Okay, moving along to public projects. Did you say something?
Hey, see Tim up there. Yeah, he was incognito.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have some updates and additional information for you along with the memo. The latest breaking news from our overlay and concrete project is that we're looking to close the roundabout, the north one by City Market, as early as Thursday to do the work we need to do in there. We just got a concurrence from CDOT to move forward. And we're trying to get in there because it needs to be closed for about a week because there's a little bit of concrete to do with the ADA ramps as well as extensive asphalt work. So we need to get it closed for a week and we want to try to be able to reopen for next weekend ahead of the holiday. Not that Memorial Day is huge up here, but we would expect a bit of an increase in traffic. So southbound will be open. What we call the flyover into town will be open. But for northbound traffic through that roundabout, they'll be detoured onto Airport Road. We've talked with the high school and Peyton, who coordinates the graduation parade for the seniors, and they are all aware of this road work that's going to be ongoing.
Shannon, while we're on roundabouts,
Mhm.
are any idea of any progress being made on the Park French roundabout?
And that's going in with the BGV development. The last I heard from the team there, we're going through design and permitting. The town's involved in a lot of that review. As far as construction goes, they're going to look to do some utility relocation, some Excel lines and that sort of thing this summer, and then begin the real construction next summer.
Thanks.
Okay, any questions on overlay? Okay. And then I wanted to discuss big one on here next, unless we want to hit any other questions. The big one being the Bald Field Pavilion.
We know the big one.
Okay, just making sure. I was gonna give you all a little recap of how we got to where we are as far as the project scope. I omitted that from the memo for brevity's sake, but we thought it might be good to touch on it a bit. Initially, the project we wanted to do in 2025 was a smaller project where we tackled some of the accessibility and some of the site work to get us those things and allow for better winter maintenance. We wanted to leave the restroom building alone. So we moved forward with that idea, and that's kind of how we budgeted with the $1 million in the CIP. But then we got our design team going in September. We got survey work done, and they did an analysis of the site for us. And they said, we can't do this project with a restroom. We have to basically demolish it and rebuild it if you want to move forward. So we brought that to council, I think in November, let you know that, and we decided we were going to move ahead with the project in full with getting the restroom taken care of and doing the site work. So that's what we've been working on. we did our initial cost estimating at schematic design at a staff and consultant level. It came in at $5.5 million. Staff was like, oh, that's not a great number to move forward with. So we did a lot of hard work at that point. You know, we took all the fluff out. We did some value engineering. We looked at the phasing of how we could move things around to get a more feasible project for 2025 to move forward. That's where we are now. We went to RFP for a general contractor, and Columbine Hills Construction and their team is our top pick. As detailed in the memo, that's about a $3.3 million project. Staff is recommending a $2 million appropriation and then using some leftovers from other projects to make up the rest and give us our contingency. So that's where we're at. We can't really do much there other than continue with the routine maintenance as is without going in for this larger scope project for phase one. I can't say we have to do the project. We can let it sit as it is, but at some point it's going to have to be done and the price will just continue to rise. So we're here today to get direction from council whether we move forward with the project this year or postpone it for another round of CIP.
Thanks for the summary.
Yeah.
Another?
Shannon, during construction, I'm assuming we'll still be able to have access to the field, the ball fields, right?
There's service gates, like maintenance gates on either end for both fields. So we'll direct everyone there. The electrician on the team is very aware that we don't want to have outages for the season.
You hired Taylor, right? Okay, because
Combine. He did all the work for the LED replacements and has a
Yep.
significant amount of background knowledge
he's done a lot.
how all of those wires run, and it's a monster. The electrical work that we have to work around to get this project done is quite impressive.
Shannon, before more questions from council, could you talk just what was in the CIP for this year and next year? And then what would likely be left for a phase two and how that cost might work out?
Sure. And when we did the big 5-year look with finance, I think at the most recent retreat, we took the initial $3 million that was proposed, put 1 million in 2025, and then we put the other 2 million in the future years column, so that it wasn't part of the calculation for cash flow. So we've kept it as a project, but it is not in reserves currently. And we don't have anything budgeted on the CIP next year. Phase 2, which we're pitching as the batting cages, getting into the parking lot and site signage, maybe a few other things, isn't budgeted. Feedback we got is batting cages are nice to have. They're not vital. Maybe we could do some fundraising for them, we being the community, and tackle that a different way. There is a lot of earthwork associated with those batting cages that would likely not be a great donor situation. So we would want to kick that in probably with public dollars if we could get there. Site signage is nice, not vital, but we didn't design out that phase 2 and budget it yet, because we figured it would be a ways off.
All right.
I think I appreciate all the work that you did in getting it down from the 5 million to the 3.3. I reading this, I saw that the extra $2 million appropriation that was in there. It was a little sticker shock on what is already somewhat of an uncertain financial situation that the town's in currently. I imagine that there's not a whole lot of more value engineering that can be done, or more of a phased approach. Like, I guess getting rid of the shade structure for the time being isn't going to save us $1.5 million off of
We
that.
can't touch the shade structure without bringing the bathrooms up to code. the bathrooms can't be brought up to code without a full rebuild.
I think my point on that is being that if there's not a whole lot more phasing we can do on this to bring down that initial cost. So I guess my question is, what safety concerns do you have with having this as is and kicking the can down the road a year or two when we have a little more financial clarity?
We don't have ADA accessibility in that site, really at all. There's some interesting ramping that's at an intense grade. You know, the stairs are in disrepair, the handrails don't meet code. There's trips hazards along the bleachers. So there's just a lot of that going on that was probably code compliant 30 years ago, but really doesn't meet standards for today.
What safety concerns are overt that are there? Is there walls that are going to crumble on somebody, or is there above and beyond the state that it was in 30 years ago? Is there a danger to public safety as it is right now?
I don't know if I can give that opinion other than the accessibility issue. I mean, we maintain it the best we can. If there was walls that were going to fall on people, it would be closed. So there isn't that sort of extreme measure, but someone could trip over the bleachers, for example, and we would be in a bit of a liability situation.
How would this affect spectators this summer for the baseball season?
That the whole area would be closed. I'm not sure how the fields are spectated for summer rec leagues. Honestly, the high school baseball team, I believe, has wrapped up their season out there recently. So I'm unsure with what spectator volume we would be displacing. There could still be spectators along the, or just not like behind the plates where the work needs to happen. Hi, John.
Hey, great.
Thanks. Sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
If not.
Just to, I think the berm that's on the east side of the south field would be a spectator spot for, youth baseball games. I mean, the adult leagues, majority of them are sitting in dugouts. Soccer, lacrosse, they're out on the fields because of the way they're designed, but it will be, it'll have to be creative, but, hanging out around those outskirts of the places. Yeah.
Remind me, I think it was in here, but completion date, made a project.
Yeah, we believe we could get the site work done before fall. And then the building would probably trickle into winter. We have some interesting scheduling with Excel Energy for the transformer upgrade that is likely needed, but it would be, I think, ready to go by spring. I'm just not sure the completion date for the building portion.
Baseball 2026, it'll be ready. Wow, it's faster than I thought.
All right. So how do people feel about this project? I think we need to decide if we feel like we have $2 million more that we want to spend right now. Dick.
We don't have $2 million flying around to throw at things like this. However, I think we need to find it because this is a very important asset to our rec department, in my opinion. I was here 30 years ago when it was first built, and it was very much celebrated. And it was, it's been used sporadically over the years. I should say used a lot during the years, and it's really deteriorating now. And I think the deterioration is accelerating. I don't know, you're the professional, you can speak to that. And it's just certainly not up facilities that we have made a priority in our community. And during good times and bad times, rec facilities are very important. And for that reason, I support it.
All right.
I appreciate, like I said earlier, all the work that was put into it. And I too agree with Dick in the fact that this is a very important project that is, highlights our youth sports and our, the activities and the people that are there. Unfortunately, the price tag is above where I feel comfortable at this time, with declining revenues and excelling expenses. With some of the perils that we're running into right now, this is something that I would love to put in that full amount in the CIP on our budget retreat, and with hopefully with your relationship with Columbine and FD Taylor to be able to push this back to a time that we feel more financially secure in being able to do this.
I agree with Jay. The only new concept I'll bring is that this is the beginning of our new turf fields, which we've heard so much positive feedback from the community about. I think we'll have some high school baseball players talking about what it meant to them and their season. It's an amazing space. So giving ourselves some time to see how that space is now used with these huge upgrades to the turf field, seeing if we have any additional updates to the design or what we want to do with that space, because it is so important to our community in a lot of ways.
Rika?
I agree that for years that space has needed to be upgraded and changed, and I desperately want it to be ADA compliant. The appropriation number is just too high for me right now. I'd like to see it in the CIP for future years.
I agree with both Dick and Jay from their perspectives. This is a project which I think is really important to the local community. And as Carol points out, the baseball team was just over the moon at being able to have their very first home baseball game there this season. As I look at it, it's a big price tag. It's only going to get bigger if we push it into the future. But we've got the runway project looking at us right now. And I think I have to put this below runway, even though I think it's extremely important. It needs to get budgeted for, it needs to get done. Carol makes a good point that if we go through another season of use by the high school baseball team and the way people use it this summer, we may learn more about how to finish it out. So I would unfortunately decline to spend the money at this time.
I'm in agreement. I sort of had already talked to myself about, we've had a lot of requests already this year for more money. And this is a tough spot to be in, but there's a significant amount of prioritizing that's going on right now. And the fields absolutely have been a huge success, and that was the priority. And certainly we want the whole area to be functional, but I do think that we've made a super important step, and we can afford to push this off for a year or two. While I agree everything only gets more expensive, I would love to see if there is something that maybe has less concrete or some options that might not be as expensive. I mean, I don't know how it would function if it's not all concrete, so maybe that's not even an option, but this just seems like a really expensive way to do it. Just knowing that it is going to cost this much and probably more in the future. So I don't know if there are any other options, but maybe since we are going to put it off a year, maybe we could continue looking at, what other alternatives are out there that could work. And if there's nothing, that's fine too, but just to consider that in that extra time. All right. Do you have any other questions for us?
Any other questions? Do you have more questions for me on public projects?
More? Thank you very much. All right, moving on to mobility, Matt.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. One addition that's not in the packet, coming from Duke and myself, the Quandary Peak Shuttle and Parking System Service will begin June 14th. There's still some paperwork being finalized, but really no changes from last year. It runs from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are providing free parking at the parking structure for people using the shuttle service. Locals get free shuttle service if they book it online, so that's a positive. Our commitment is the same, so I'm not asking for more money. Our commitment is the same at that maximum of $30,000 from the town. Last year, we provided less than $20,000, so it's really a pretty good program.
I see that you've got a number of questions for us. So it looks like, do we support the airport oversized parking rate of 45 a night? Do we support the paid hours in South Gondola of 8 to 3? Do we support the 50% per hour for a maximum daily rate of 350? And recommendation to update paid parking hours to 8. Does anyone want to kick us off with their responses to these questions? I know you might have other questions, but we have a pretty big packet tonight, so unless they're super important, let's keep moving through. Does anyone want to start with the questions?
I'll start. I do support the $45 a night for the oversized parking. It's not intended to make money. That fits with what other jurisdictions are doing, so I support that. I support the paid hours from 8 to 3. I support the 50 cents an hour rate in the gondola parking garage. And this isn't one of the questions. Oh, there it is. It's the last one. I support starting the paid parking downtown at 8. I realize that some people like that free 2 hours to park down there, but if it keeps cars from moving around, I think it's important. You can still get your 15 minutes free to run into the Crown and get a cup of coffee, or to Starbucks or wherever. But I support going ahead and making it consistent, starting at 8 a.m. Thank you.
I support the oversized rate of 45. I do not support any paid parking in South Gondola Garage. I think it should be free for the summer. Yeah, these are low rates, which is great. We've been very successful with low rates around on Main Street and Ridge Street as it started as a management technique. In my view, we have no need for management in the gondola lot during the summer. It's empty, or, you know, its occupancy rates are very low during the summer. And honestly, I think our community would really like to see us have that used more. I hear it all the time. And this is almost just a nuisance to using it, because people forget to do this and they get a ticket. And I think we need to stop doing this to our local community, these kinds of annoyances. And so I strongly would love to see this be free for the summer.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. Same. I mean, I do not support that either, and really for the same reasons. Between 8 and 10, yeah, we have traffic, you know, coming from the south with people coming to work. But I think to support our business community on Main Street, a lot of the business owners utilize this time to park in front of their business and go in and out. I know I do in my office. They run in and get a coffee. It's one more way of making it hard to live in Breckenridge, and I don't agree. I think we need to stop doing that to our people.
Carol?
Yes, 45. I agree with Dick. I'd like to have the South Gondola be free. So then the last question, starting at 8 a.m. I understand the rationale for moving earlier, but I do know so many community members that appreciate before work, in the morning, after drop off, just running those errands in town. So I wouldn't support moving that till we have maybe a little more information or rationale for moving it early. I think we'd hear from a lot of community members if we did that, and I need to have a strong reason to tell them why. I don't feel like I have that.
Thank you for the work on looking at the parking rate for oversized vehicles. I am just fine with the 45 as you recommended. I am also in favor of having the South Gondola free for the summer. Slightly different reason that I do feel like any encouragement that we can keep our guests in town and not looking at their watch to see how many hours they've been there, to spend more time in shops, to spend more time in downtown, to add to the vibrancy, for not needing feeling the need to get in their car and leave and not go to the coffee shop or the retail store. I think that is very beneficial, and I'd love to see that kind of come through into town. I know that this will provide some dichotomy from North Gondola to South Gondola with the charges. But again, I think we have this facility. I look forward to seeing it being used and seeing those guests stay in the garage and visiting Main Street. I also have a very difficult time with changing our paid hours from 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I think this is a time where it is really special in town, where you can go and enjoy, a couple hours of skiing or whatever it might be. And the fact is that the paid parking has already accomplished the goal of ensuring that there are spaces for our guests and for people looking to park. And I think to increase that would be, I think it would be an error in our judgment.
Great, thank you.
The memo and the questions.
I really appreciate you bringing the oversized parking down from 60. I would still like it to be lower, but I'm a yes on 45. I would like the South Gondola garage to be free. I think that's the best way to incentivize someone not to move their car. And I also oppose moving paid parking to 8 a.m.
Great. I agree with everyone and doesn't matter anyway. All right. Any final questions for Matt? Thank you very much. Thanks for all your research and data. It helps us make the decisions. Sustainability, Jesse.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I want to start by introducing our summer intern, Katie Riceburg.
Welcome.
Welcome. Katie's a student at Western, and she'll be completing her graduate studies beginning in the fall. And she's doing some research also, in addition to the internship here with the town, at Copper Mountain, doing some of the soil conservation work that they're doing over there at Powder Gorse. So
Awesome.
welcome, Katie, and thank you. Day 2 on the job. I don't have anything else to add to the memo except for related to the gas pilot, the gas planning pilot community section. So on May 7th, the Public Utilities Commission made a decision asking parties or anyone wishing to make comment on this petition to submit those by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, tomorrow. And so in doing so, we've conferred with our outside counsel on this, who has been helping on the Mountain Energy Project, just to ensure that we still have a seat at the table and how we need to engage with this particular proceeding. And so we will be filing a motion to intervene unless there is objection here today, in order for us to just continue to be a party to that discussion. And so to back up a little bit, we were selected by the Colorado Energy Office and put forward to the Public Utilities Commission as a possible pilot community to help reduce and decommission natural gas infrastructure as part of the broader gas planning and greenhouse gas reduction efforts. So we're very lucky to have been selected, but now it starts the long process of like, what does this actually mean? And we want to make sure that we have a seat at the table as we go through that exercise. So
So just to add to that, the outside counsel that we've been working with is going to do this work pro bono for us. So it's not getting rolled into the Mountain Energy project, and we're not paying separately for it, at least as long as it doesn't land in litigation. And what this particular ability or this intervening allows us the ability to have a voice in the agreement that PUC will have to approve. So if we do decide to move forward with the project, it's important for us to have a hand in crafting that agreement. So there's benefit to our municipality in particular, since the agreement as it's currently drafted really leans mostly towards accept.
And we do have word that the other communities that have been put forward will also be intervening as well. So that's Denver, Boulder, Winter Park for sure. And I think Golden, they're on the secondary list, and I don't believe they're going to intervene, but the other parties will be intervening on their own behalf.
Okay.
We're learning new stuff about the
Yeah.
PUC every day.
But I'm happy to answer questions about anything else in the memo as well.
Questions for Jesse?
Jesse, it was so great to hear about Waste Management's rollout of universal recycling and pay as you throw to the county and to other areas that don't mandate it. I was just curious if you have gotten any further with our effective recycling rates with pay as you throw and in force here. Are people recycling correctly when these are done, and if that information might be available at some point in the future?
It's a great question, and we'll actually be meeting with the scrap staff to kind of help inform them about our experience on the rollout of pay as you throw as they go through this exercise as well. We have not seen any increase in Breckenridge, and this is anecdotally coming from the scrap staff, that the contamination rate has changed at all. So we have seen an increase in the volume of single stream recycling. So we do have those numbers. But we have not seen any major change in the level of contamination. That doesn't mean the contamination's gone. It means it's still there, but that there has not been a significant uptick in that contamination. I can ask them for more detailed numbers on that, but that is anecdotally what we've heard. They do still have some particular locations around the county where they can pinpoint some very significant contamination, but those locations have not been expressed as being in Breckenridge.
Well, good job to you to have helped roll this out in Frisco and Breck, and just get them to adopt it on their own. That's a lovely way to move forward with
I
it.
know we were wondering if that was going to happen at some point. I will note that Waste Management did do some, I don't know if this happened in Breckenridge, it happened in Frisco. They blasted all the PO boxes within town and said, we're rolling this out in unincorporated, please mark your volumes. But Frisco had already been in the program for a year and a half, just like Breckenridge. And so if you hear residents reach out like, oh, I got this Waste Management postcard, what is this about? Nothing has changed here in Breckenridge, but I think they just did a mass mailing and cross their political line, their jurisdictional lines on the mass mailer.
Their questions?
We do, kind of show this to the other haulers and see if they would, I guess.
They'll see
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Yeah,
They'll see it.
they'll see it for sure. And whether or not they follow suit, but we were, I wouldn't say expecting, but we were thinking that this might come down the pike.
Love your optimism.
That's right.
Yeah. And we are seeing an uptick in the requests for the material management grant to assist property management companies, multifamily, in achieving their URO compliance. So either pushing that timeline out to allow for construction, or they're asking for money to help support the permits and design, construction, all that. Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right. We have some housing meeting minutes. The April 8th press.
Rest, huh? Good afternoon. We did have a packet or a the packet in your packet from our last meeting, which was April 8th already. And I didn't know if anybody had any questions about any of the items that were discussed at that meeting because it was a long discussion and lots of interesting topics that we covered. So if there's no questions about the packet, I just have a couple other real short
Great.
things to do. Just an update. I know some of you heard about solar issues at Staples Village. And really good news. I mean, first it was really bad news, then it was really good news. So as it
Thanks for
usually
only
is.
bringing the good news.
Sunover, who was the provider of the solar panels and the entity responsible for having them installed and coordinating with Excel, went bankrupt. Huge provider of solar panels. And so thankfully, Suzanne was able to contract with another provider that will take over the installation of any future panels and is also has been successful in working with Excel to get the existing panels that were already installed working and making sure that they were covering the utilities, at least while the sun was out. That was the first goal. And now they've also negotiated with Excel, and I think it's within 2 weeks, they'll be fully functional and hooked into the grid, which is a great save because that could have been quite a problem. The other issue, I just wanted to give you a quick update. The county is taking the lead on the annexation of the Wayside property. We haven't talked about it a lot, but they're starting the process to think about getting an annexation, not a petition, but an annexation application prepared and presented to the town council and to the BOCC. As a first step, though, they have contracted with Summit Homes and Arapahoe Architects to do some fit tests so you guys can understand when we do annex it, if we place it into the existing land use district, what does that mean in terms of what can be developed there? Because, it's a different number of units if it's rental versus a for sale. So they're going to do a couple options so that we'll be able to say, we're ready to move forward with annexations. Here's a couple potential build out options, what they would look like, how many units, that kind of stuff. So they're working on that. The last thing is Urban Land Use Institute, ULI. Some of you may be familiar with ULI. It's a fairly significant organization around land use planning and housing. They recently had a sort of symposium down at DU, and together they came up here, was it yesterday? And Melanie toured them through Staples, Larkspur, a couple of our projects. So we expect that there's going to be a pretty cool report about the Breckenridge efforts around workforce housing in ULI. And that's a lot of recognition. And it sounds like they were super positive about what we're doing. And actually, I think Staples impressed them a lot in terms of, targeting a segment of the community that isn't often targeted, but then also balancing it out with our rentals at Vista Verde and Larkspur. So something to look forward to. And that's all of the updates that I have.
Questions for Lori?
Lori, it looked like we're halfway through our housing helps budget, about a quarter of the way through the year. Just curious, if there's any advanced planning on that, or if we're going to be looking at to move funds from buy down, anticipating to look at moving funds from buy downs to housing help.
Yeah, I think Darcy can talk on it a little bit, but yeah, we are moving through the Housing Helps Fund and fully expect that we will totally spend the Housing Helps funds. I'm not sure we will spend the buy down funds because we've been kind of slow on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, when you're sort of building out and selling a project, you're almost competing against yourself when you do the buy downs because we have to spend about the same amount of gap, and what we're getting are nowhere near the quality units that we're producing with new construction. So when you're rolling out new construction, then buy downs are not probably the best strategy to be going up against the new construction. But housing helps super important in terms of down payment assistance and that kind of stuff. But I don't know how close to Using it all.
So for the buy down budget, we actually have only utilized about a quarter of the budget there. So we'll have significant amount of funds available from that to move towards housing helps if that's what everyone chooses to do. And now we are at about $1.6 million that we've already, so even the last update is further updated.
Appreciate all your work, and I think that, I believe I speak for all of us saying that Housing Helps is such an important part of our housing program, and just applaud your efforts on getting those applications through and understand the importance to us on that. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Open space update. There's BOSAC minutes. Duke, anything to add?
Happy to field any questions on the minutes.
Questions? Coming down.
Yep.
See you later. He reports. There's an equity commission minutes in there. Any questions on that? Great. Let's move into financials. Tracy?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. In your packet, you have the financials for the 3 months of 2025. March is largely reflective of February tax collections. We're overall approximately 1.1 above our budgeted revenues in the excise fund and 700,000 ahead of prior year. Sales tax is flat in comparison with budget and 200,000 behind prior year. Accommodations tax is flat with budget and prior year. Real estate transfer tax is ahead 1 million in comparison with our budget and ahead 800,000 in comparison with prior year. Our overall net taxable sales year to date as of February was behind 3.68%, and February as a standalone was behind 1.70%. Our retail in town was behind 6.8%. However, retail out of town was ahead 9.69%. Real estate transfer tax continues to trend high in comparison with budget and prior year, mostly due to our single family homes and timeshares coming in a second position. I did add as well the BTO report showing a slight decline in January occupancy compared with 2024, and as well as the ADR. I am happy to take any questions before I pass it on to Tracy.
Pam? Yes. Nope. Thank you very much. Tracy?
Noon. Looking back at March close, feel like it was 100 years ago.
I know that's what I was thinking. February seems very long ago.
It really does. Favorability in to budget to date was 8.6 million. Some nice things that were in the revenue standout items was the 1.1 million we got from the CRCA. Our return on investments was favorable at 500,000. And if I look at the April close, which I know we'll be looking at the end of the month, we're sitting at 1 million favorability for end of April. Favorability in expenditures continues to grow from that. Oh, can't see, it's too small. 5.5 over to 6 for April close. A lot of it is phasing. And most of the favorability is really coming from our capital expenditures, and that's just really supply chain and when projects are actually getting completed and invoiced. But more exciting, at the end of the week, we kick off budget season. So that's exciting time, definitely for me and hopefully for everybody else in the room and around the town. This is our opportunity where Dave and I have been working on the cash flow, looking at projections for 25 on and out as we've been considering things going on. So we'll be doing the projection for 25, looking at the financials and really challenging what do we need to put in for projection, and then looking for success for 2026. But it'll be a good summer and exciting conversations.
Very much for your year-to-date comments. We felt like that was super helpful.
Thank you.
For Tracy? All right. Thank you both. got an events committee memo.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You have the memo in front of you. The biggest update, we had a little bit of a brief discussion about where the Thursday farmers market would end up, and we are feeling very great about the exchange lot. I stood out there with the event producer and just the views, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. And there's been some great buzz about it around the local community. So thank you for that direction.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thanks Matt Blotter too. I just want to say for making it happen. So. Cool, thank you.
Are people okay? Do we need help? We're still okay?
I was like, I don't even need to call Carol. 9:57. Like, I have nothing.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Mayor and Kai.
HR staffing quarterly update. Sorry, I was getting myself caught up.
Did about my update.
I was.
Good,
I was.
good. That's what I like to
So
see.
excited I couldn't find that part in the packet.
You'll see that we're keeping track of our turnover as usual. It's about 4.4 in Q1. Nothing too notable about that. We track it by department. And the thing that I would like to highlight is that we had a record number of applications in Q1. So I think we're becoming an employer of choice. 690 applications is a lot of applications in 3 months to process. We did have a lot of our seasonal applications and those are included, but that's quite a lot to process. And I think it's a good sign for us. And we had 11 promotions as well into full-time year-round positions, which I think is another great number to highlight. The reason I included the addendum was just to highlight our youth employment and career training in the community. I thought maybe it was important to note that we do, when you put it all together, we do a good amount of youth employment as well as career training through our internships. So, and if you have any ideas or thoughts, we're open to hearing any ideas and thoughts on that topic. So you can always let us know.
Thank you very much. Questions for Dana? Comments?
I went to the freshman presentations at the end of April and quite a few of them did like jobs for youth in the county. So I know that they are interested, and I was going to just snapshot that page and send it to some of the kids who did that project, because I know they are looking and eager for places that are eager to have them.
Great. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar thought, which is just if there's a way for us, I don't know what your outreach to the high school is or our outreach as a town. They were very excited that you were doing this analysis. We shared it at MMC and they were super pleased that we were looking into what we already do and if there's any potential, expansion that we should do. But I would love it if this could sort of have a bigger impact, like if we could share this with the high school and then also somehow share it with mayors and managers, because many of them seemed very willing to also have some interns, but I think showing them, where it's already worked would be a good place to start for most of them. So not sure how that conversation can go, but I'd love it if you let us know what we should do next.
Great. We'll put some thought to that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Right. Thank you.
All right, we are now into you.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm ready. Very ready.
Drone regulations, which is super exciting.
Hello again. Before you is essentially, we're seeking approval to move ahead with some revisions and amendment to the administrative rules and regulations regarding drone operation. So really the primary two changes that you see that were provided in the packet were we need to boost our general liability insurance coverage for all contractors, the town, as well as licensees. And so this is across the board we're trying to do. And in this case, it applies to unmanned aircraft systems or drones. In this case, the state mandated minimum is $1.2 million. And so we need to change the administrative rules and regulations to accommodate that increase, as well as the other changes just to kind of generalize the language so they can become the town manager designee, so that Shannon can decide who can sign off on these and approve these drone permits here till the end of time. So those are the two changes. We're just looking for a head nod. Any questions you all have, but also just an agreement that you're okay with these changes, and then we can make them administrative.
Everybody okay with the changes?
I'm okay with the changes. I just have a question about, do we think there's a lot of drone usage that doesn't apply for a permit?
There's some. So these permits only apply to drones that take off or land on town property. So people take off from private property and fly where they choose, and then hopefully land back on their own private property. In that case, they are not required to get a permit from the town. So do people still use drones? Yes, they do. Where they take off and land is another question.
I ask that question because I've observed drones usually operated in the preparation for sale of single-family homes. And what I've observed is the use of the streets as the takeoff and landing zone because they don't want things in the driveway to mar the depiction. Are people applying for those permits, or are those basically just flybys that we don't know about?
Generally, the ones we receive that are permitted are for special events or for even BTO related kind of promotions, if you will. We don't see a ton from realtors. If that answers your question.
We have seen some though, and I would say in the past, they say they're taking off and landing from the property that they're filming, and so then they don't need a permit, but fire. So I would guess from that group, and probably just folks who randomly run out to Block 11 or somewhere and they want to fly their drone, they're not realizing they need a permit. But I think that we also have a lot of compliance from particularly professional folks and even people who come up on vacation and will reach out to Peyton to find out if they need.
All right, are people?
Seems the fee is reasonable, 25 for one time and 150 for the year. That'll be a barrier. So.
Okay, thank you. So the next we have the Runway Neighborhood Master Plan, which is really just an opportunity for us to talk about process for tonight.
Yes, hi, Amelia Brackett, planner. If you have any process questions, please let me know.
We're ready for you. Thank you. Building 101. Yeah, look at us go. Look at us.
Where you have schedule?
Hello, council, mayor. Gannon, Scott, Keely. Our peers and colleagues behind us here. Breck's Chief Building Official here with Philip Sweat, Breck's Deputy Building Official. Thank you for having us, and especially thanks for reading our gripping, compelling edge of your seat Building 101 memo about the ins and outs on the 7 different code books up for readoption work right now. That's 7, not even counting the adopted by reference types. And 1, the energy code, is actually on the ASAP to do with requirements of a large state grant we received to help us with it. And as intimidating, nerve-wracking, and character building as this may be, I'm gonna ask that we directly turn this straight over to Q&A right away. Jay, what you got?
Thanks, Rick. One of my questions for you was what local codes overlay or modify the national codes? So like what are the ones that we put on top of it and why? And does it in your opinion, does it cause undue stress or duress for our builders?
This one, by focusing kind of on our locally adopted amendments, to the international codes. That's the overlay and the modification that we mainly do. I like to call it code tweaks by code geeks, where we in or out certain things to make the codes better for us and our community. Just about all the 7 code books up for readoption at the 6-year cycle time that we are in have locally adopted amendments, Jay. Some more than others. Have some examples here. For instance, the energy code, the IECC, had the local going above code program, known for around 10 years as the Summit Sustainable Building Code, the SSBC, which is probably going away this code cycle now, that the new 2024 IECC has risen up so high. And that same IECC code book also had the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, REMP, locally amendments all over it. Then the very popular IRC, the International Residential Code Book, that we largely work in because of our residential versus commercial building market around here, had the making automatic sprinkler systems mandatory code amended out of it for years in BREC, except for buildings 6,000 square feet and above, where sprinklers are still required in BREC through our local amendments. Yep. Last simple example of common local amendments that overlap and modify the international codes is to the IFGC, the International Fuel Gas Code, where we have the ventless fireplace code amended out of them, like many Colorado jurisdictions, including our own, also for many years. Those ventless fireplaces are dangerous, especially in mountain communities.
Very cool. Thank you. And then just the second question is, what role do the energy raters play in our community? What are their ranges and limitations, and what's the impact on our building community?
As you can see, I anticipated your questions pretty well. I have some notes here I'll refer to. The energy raters and the energy consulting firms who employ them play a vital role here in this energy conservation centric area and community of ours. You might say they play an energy efficiency performance enhancement inducing role here. That's a mouthful. Their ranges include that they are available to raise the energy bar. I like Cliff Bars, peanut butter. During the design, the construction, inspection, the testing, and the cataloging of all the conservation achievements. They study the state of the art in building science for our local environment all along the way. And they carry that banner plus the ball forward with the local building department teams. Their limitations, because you asked about their limitations, are that they are not like the building department teams themselves. They do not write the codes or rewrite the codes or write the local amendments to the codes we do. They consult. All in order to better the international codes for local application. They do teamwork on the research and analyzation to a debate level sometimes, which helps push us of all this stuff quite nicely though. At our local, at least our local raters do. Quiet golf claps to those guys. They're good teammates of ours, and they raise the energy bar.
Thanks, Rick.
Rick, a couple questions. So first, you talked about at the top how we try and align with all other municipalities and the county to make it easy on builders. Is this happening with this update?
Yes, absolutely. I'll let my cohort and right-hand man here take that one for me.
Hi, everyone. Mayor, Council, I'm Philip Sweat. I'm Deputy Building Official. Sorry, can you hear me okay? So we tried to stay hand in hand with the county to make it more cohesive with our local contractors. But BREC is unique, and we've always tried to be a little bit above and beyond, and we have a different market. So that said, the Summit Sustainable, the SSBC code that we used to be on was about 10% above. The new codes that are coming that Rick was alluding to, the energy code, is about 5% above, but it's getting us right in line with that. We're looking to strengthen amendments, and we'll be coming back with staff recommendations on where we see that. We really feel like existing buildings a big target because that's so much of our permits are condos, remodels, additions, alterations as we build out. So that being said, Summit County has a little bit different market and they travel, a wider range. So we're able to really narrow our focus in and get the community input that we've been doing at these meetings. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we strive for consistency with the other jurisdictions like Frisco and Summit County for sure. They, as he said, handle a much larger circumference than us. We get to be kind of the small local Mayberry type building department, if you will. We like to go a little bit above code. So the consistency may be, quite followed through with until you look at kind of the fine print or read between the lines. And you'll find when you do that, that Breck tends to, lead the way in being a little more robust about everything. And then Philip brought up a good point. That's our future as we build out is the existing buildings and their renovation and redevelopment. And so we want to kind of not forget about that at this current code cycle readoption and the wise local amendments that we try to make for Breck, that some of them aim toward some energy efficiency pickup on the existing buildings.
Yeah, thank you. And looking at this memo with the outreach, like you've had incredible turnout so far. I know there's going to be quite a few open houses left. So great job on that. Are there any concerns that are starting to bubble up or themes or pushback on anything?
No, surprisingly not. People are actually a little taken aback and stunned at how, unpainful it is. And maybe that's our presentation of it. And I think it also has a lot to do with all three, Frisco, Summit, and Breck, realizing that the new energy code and all the codes have just all risen up, above our SSBC and within 5%, as mentioned before, to these years, the Zero Energy Ready Homes program. We're kind of trying to keep things simple. That's our theme in terms of any alterations or tweaks to everything. Code tweaks by Code Geeks. We want to minimize them, keep them super wise. It's complicated enough that we'll only overcomplicate it or complicate it more when absolutely need be, I think is kind of what we're selling, and they're buying so far.
I'll just add one thing that we are seeing as part of the grant and adopting the 2024 energy code. We have to adopt the Colorado model electric and solar ready codes. And that's really where the contractors are kind of focusing right now, because as we go towards electrification, that's probably going to be the largest, setback or, improvement, whichever way you want to, that contractors are going to be faced with. And that's really mandated by the state. As we've, tried to message with the contractors, don't shoot the messenger. We're steering the bus, but the state is driving that.
Yeah, that's the one that does have some, monetary implications to them, is that even if their homeowners and their site are all geared toward gas, they will also have to be ready to be geared toward electric. So it is an additional cost. We're hoping and we're sure that we'll see that it'll drive folks to forget the gas and just go electric since they're required to do so. It's the future. It's where we need to be. It's a green energy for the most part compared to the fossil fuels of the gas. I'll leave it at that.
Sounds like you guys are doing a great job. Thank you for all that public involvement. That helps a lot. We've been through less easy transitions. So I think absolutely your messaging has been well received.
It is helping a lot. I think that's why they're, joining our team, is that we're really out there right beside them.
Great.
And thanks y'all. That wasn't too bad at all. Try harder next time to stump us.
We'll try.
Thank you.
It's by Code Geeks. It's amazing. All right, moving on to exterior lighting and lumen per acre analysis.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you is a work session discussing the exterior lighting code and the potential of a lumens per acre code change. During the April 8th town council meeting, you directed staff to look at potentially implementing a lumens per acre standard, which staff looked into and compared that with current code and don't recommend making any changes as described in the memo. Additionally, staff has already completed extensive outreach and engagement demonstrated by the statistics listed in the memo. And staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ollie. All right. This was a terrific memo, by the way. Questions? Oh,
This is a great memo, and I think was very informative even for somebody who's paid a lot of attention to this area. I think our code is head and shoulders above most lighting codes, and I think we need to stick with it. I don't think we need any changes, just to put my position right out.
great. Any other questions? I just wanted to say that I think this analysis was sort of done because of some discussions that Julia and I had with the public. And I just really appreciate that you gave it a thorough review as would this work for our community, and decided, you know, it's unnecessary and probably wouldn't work best for our community. So I feel like it was a really honest effort to analyze that, and I really appreciate it and feel very comfortable going back to the people who've discussed this with us and let them know that, you know, it's not something we're moving forward with. So thanks for equipping us for that conversation. Everyone's support, or I shouldn't ask it that way. How do people feel about staff's recommendation? Yes.
Thank you for fully vetting it and providing the option, and I would be in favor of following staff's recommendation of not going into a lumen per acre calculation.
Yeah, agree with what's said, but thanks for looking into it in such detail.
And I agree, stick with what we've got.
Okay,
Thank you.
what we have. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for town cash flow review. That could be a lengthy one. Thank you. All right, we are going to move into the town cash flow review.
I'm just gonna kick it off because Dave
Ooh.
is confused. Um, And I think I've mentioned this to all of you because I believe I had a chance to talk with all of you about the 5-year cash flow. Part of what we had planned for today was not only to run through the cash flow and update you on our position, and particularly related to runway. But we were originally thinking we were going to look at that for both phase 1 and phase 2. And it really, anytime we start to project out 5 years with our capital expenses, we start to potentially dip into the cash that we have in the bank. So we're going to run you through sort of a live exercise where Tracy will put the spreadsheet up on the board and you could decide if you wanted to pull some CIP projects, kind of what you wanted to do to help us balance the budget. We really are focusing right now just on phase 1 of runway. And as you saw on the cash flow, with the assumptions that Dave and Tracy will run through, we have the cash to do the phase 1 of the project. So we are going to skip the exercise of, pulling and pushing on the CIP projects and save that for later in the budget process. So probably August or September. So just sort of let you know, we're not doing that piece. We're probably focused just on the top half of that cash flow document that you have. Dave?
Okay. Thank you, Shannon. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This started about, I think as Shannon said, a month ago. I think there was a request to kind of see if we could do runway for phase 1, phase 2. So Tracy and I went back, met with different departments and relooked at kind of revenue and expenses for 2025. Normally we do a projection update when we do the budgeting process that you see, I don't know, October-ish from us, but we went through a process after the first quarter of this year just to see how we're landing with updated assumptions. And you do have in the document the assumptions that we went through this year. One of the big ones is we've taken sales tax down 5%. From 2024 levels, and that's based upon some of the trending that we've been seeing recently. And then on the upside, we had better performance happening with open space. So we adjusted the budget, the projection for that by $840,000. And then RET, as you know, we've been keeping RET at around 6 million. And we're trending very high. We ended 2024 at 7.5 million for RET. So we went ahead and bumped up our projection by 1.5 million for 2025 based upon where we are currently and expectations moving forward. Accommodation, we reduced 5% from the budget. And property taxes, marijuana, we left alone. And had some other odds and ends changes that were going on our workforce housing fund. We did reduce the sales tax by 1.2 million. And then looking into investment income, we increased it by $1 million. I think Tracy just said we're going to be favorable in April already, $1 million. So we probably have a little bit of upside with that. And then we had the payment from the Colorado River Co-op of 1.18 million that we got for utility fund this year as well. That was not budgeted. So if you kind of give an overall view of how we're tracking this year to the budget with these revenue assumptions, we're okay. That's the end of the story with that. I mean, we're going to be up a little bit, even taking sales tax down. And so I think if there's any other deterioration of sales tax, we will address that when we go through the budgeting process for 2026. But even with the 5%, we're trending okay for the year from a revenue perspective for the town. I don't have much left in my back pocket, I'll tell you that. But I try to hedge a little bit. Not anymore. And then going through expense, we did, main thing is we updated, which you're going to kind of see in the document because we did update for runway phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, so when we went through this project, we went ahead and updated what we know on runway. So really the numbers you see up here for the 5 years on the cash flow and the council packet, it does include runway. And we were kind of going to go through and see if we wanted to do phase 1, phase 2, and what that would look like. And I will just say that in looking at the 3 years that we have based upon the runway projections, plus the updated expense projections and revenue assumptions, carrying out 26, 27, in addition to 25, we're okay to do phase 1 of runway without really making any CIP, I'll say, decisions right now based upon, there's other projects that we put in here. I know there's things being considered in housing that maybe we'll do or don't do, but that's put into 2026, an acquisition that's in here as well. So we have ample room, I feel good about, for the next 3 years of runway. Carrying beyond that, we really will have to look at other projects that could be, that we pushed out when we did the CIP review last September to try to get to a break-even budget, if you recall. And some of those could be the 106 West e-delivery permanent station, fiber we had pushed out. So I think there's decisions that need to be made between now and September when we come back, and we'll go through the budgeting process again. We did this trying to get just a level set for runway, but we'll go back and go through this with all the departments for the budgeting process and look at our cash flow at that point in time. And I think have a better, we'll look at the CIPs, what's coming up, what do we want to do from that perspective. But I will just kind of tell you right now, from just looking at runway phase 1, I think we're fine. And we're not going to get into dipping below the 135 benchmark that we wanted to keep for ourselves from a town cash perspective. I'll just go from there without going through every number, because this was based upon everything being in. And not to go through all that, I'll just tell you we're okay on phase 1 runway over the next 3 years, if that helps.
Does help. Or should we discuss what would you like us to do next?
Well, if you have questions for Dave on his assumptions or anything in the cash flow, we just want to make sure that the financial part, you have a good understanding of where we are for the discussions that are coming up on runway.
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear, so the assumption is sales tax collection is down 5% 2025, and then going forward it's flat.
I kept it flat. Yeah. Where before we had put a minor increase every year, we took that out. So we just reassessed 25 and then kept it flat going forward.
And it's flat to the reduced number.
Yeah.
I have a live spreadsheet in a second where we can change those assumptions and see what it does. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, it's hard what we would have been able to do is change your CIP allocations. It's hard to change the assumptions on the fly because really Tracy has to go back through a lot of different calculations to figure that stuff out.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to reforecast 26 through 2030 as best we could. Normally we'd be doing that through the budgeting process. But we tried to put assumptions that we felt would carry on through 2030 and a conservative view from our revenue. And we're flat. I mean, that's what that really shows. But we have a lot of revenue streams for the town beyond sales tax, which we're blessed with. And that kind of helps, I think, the ebb and flow of what the tax might be, might do from that perspective. Do you want us to, when we come back in September, we can do some sensitivity analysis versions for you? Just if we take it down 5% a year.
I would love to see 3%, 5% a year down going out.
Worst case scenario.
The worst case
Yeah.
scenario. It's not necessarily where I want to land, but I would like to know what is worst case scenario.
We'll do that.
Any other questions, comments?
Dave, does this happen to have the ability to be a living document? Is this cash flow for this kind of difficult time that we're in? Is this something that we can bring up to like update monthly or quarterly and kind of see how things are tracking based on what happened on the previous quarter and what the trends are, or not really?
I think that Tracy's going to come over at me, but we
Yeah.
are going to be putting in a quarterly forecast for the town, not just once a year. We just did a first quarter view. I do think quarterly we can really do a level set and come back and say, here's how we're tracking. And from a cash perspective, if that's okay. I don't know if monthly, but quarterly, our goal would be to kind of reassess how we're tracking for the year and be able to come through and do that. But if you want us to look and see how we could incorporate something in the monthly packet, we'll look at that.
I definitely don't think monthly is necessary, but I think that this cash flow sheet that you have is extremely clear and very intuitive, and is something that if we see on a regular basis that we can kind of wrap our mind around, like when we get the $2 million appropriation request, of be able to look and be able to say, okay, what does that thing look like?
Right.
And these are numbers that we're able to be more informed versus just working. Good.
Are you okay with that, Tracy? I need you to nod your head. Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
The one pager that you receive every month, there's a whole support behind it. So I do have those forecast numbers projected out, and what we've got in this cash flow and all of those nuances. So I do have everything available. It's just how much into the details do you want to see? So I have it. I'm happy to share it whenever if you want.
Yeah. And if you want the one pager,
Yeah.
we can,
Everything feeds up into this.
yeah, it's all linked up.
The one pager is phenomenal.
Okay.
This is a great document. I agree with Jay. Quarterly be great, but if it's easy to do monthly, I guess that'd be good too, but
okay.
I think quarterly's fine.
I think I would just add, this is a great document. We use it all the time. I don't think you're going to see much variation in this because it's going to be the revenue and expense numbers up the top. And so it's, you probably won't see a lot flow down unless something goes wildly wrong. So we might just spend maybe next month, spend a little bit more time on Tracy's financial report and see if you want to see that in a different way, because I feel like for the most part, that has the information that you're looking for. We're ahead, and as long as we're ahead, we're not eating into cash. And so this doesn't really change. But I think what you're getting to is what is our, how are we doing on our budget, revenue and expenses? Do you actually have extra money to spend?
Especially when you pull out that phasing portion that
Right.
kind of muddies the water, which is understandable. Like, we understand why phasing happens, but it's still hard to know, like, are we good?
That's one stuff.
Thing that's really handy about this is the CIP projects that are included and the CIP projects that we've been talking about that aren't included. I feel like if we can keep that in particular, that list of projects that are coming up that we haven't even talked about, just really fresh, I feel like that's really helpful.
Its ability to that. Yeah. Okay.
And it just back to the original, we knew that 2025 was we weren't balancing the budget for 2025. So we used a little bit of our cash to cover, or we're using a little bit of our cash to cover, but you did balance going forward. And so now as we look at 2026 in the fall, you'll look at these projects, you'll look at our cash position and decide which ones you can start adding back in and still remain with a flat budget.
And the main thing is, we added 26 million on phase 1, phase 2 of runway, right? That we did not have when we did this last fall. And that's a lot. So. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments, requests? Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I
Oh, yes.
So runway, I mean, I'm seeing $1 million in those 4 years, starting in is that 26, I think. And the rest is going through the housing fund, I presume? And under CIP.
I think you need to look up a line.
Yeah.
Right, 10, there we go.
Yeah, that was just a change of technology on bus purchases.
In 28.
That was the million if we went diesel versus other.
Paying any cash flow going out for runway until 2028.
This amount is phase 2 of runway that I'm showing here. And the way, if we would have gone through this exercise, if we would have gone through the different CIP projects just to see what we could or couldn't do with phase 2 of runway. Because doing runway phase 1, phase 2, plus what we had approved in November of last year's CIP, it wasn't going to work. So we were going to look and see what we could go through with these different projects, whether it was in the numbers or whether it was not, and we had to put it in. So that was the working exercise we were going to do. All I was trying to say is for phase 1, you don't really see it in this document, but I can tell you I've done the look. We're okay on phase 1 for runway without really hurting ourselves.
Okay, so it's going through the housing fund, it's going.
Yes, it's going through housing. Yeah.
Just that the CIP projects you see there were projects that you could have decided to pull out. And, we talked about if you took out the 19 million for runway phase 2, you would be green all the way across. But you could also get there by postponing other projects. So that was the exercise, right? What you see on the top half includes both phases of runway plus all these CIP projects that are listed. And then the ones that, and they're not all CIP because you have housing helps and buy downs in there as well. And then the CIP projects not included. We wanted to make sure you, as you were potentially doing that exercise, you could add those things back in and see where you are. So it was really just going to be a real time sort of pick and choose your priorities and see how we get to a balanced budget. But I think that the red and green that you have in the middle of the page shows you where we are and includes all of these CIP projects that are listed, plus some others that, we didn't think we could pull out.
Dave, when you say that phase 1 is being run through housing fund, that is while borrowing from the housing fund has to borrow from excise
Absolutely.
in order for it to run through housing. Housing itself doesn't have the fund for it.
No, with all the other programs we have with housing on top of runway.
Where it says CIP projects, it's really CIP projects that are included but could be removed.
Going through the back and forth, trying to figure out how we could do phase 2 of runway, basically.
That makes sense. Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
A real-time snapshot.
It's just getting better and better. Okay, we're gonna have the runway presentation. Runway neighborhood development. The rest of that title is, and budget.
Good afternoon again. Well, it's only been 13 days since our last work session, and there has been a lot of work done. I think hopefully we have been able to answer some of the questions and issues that you raised on the 30th. I just have to thank Melanie and Darcy and Keely and Shannon and Suzanne for working over the last 13 days to get back in front of you and hopefully provide you with the information that you needed. Our goal obviously is to hopefully address your issues. And if you're comfortable, then move forward and set this for first reading on the 27th. So there is a memo in your packet, and I'm just going to go through it briefly and cover, because I know you guys have all read it. But first, just, a quick review of our RFQ process, because that did come up at our last meeting. And I think it is important. We started working on this back in 23. We had an internal group with some consultants that did sort of the first stab at sort of fit tests and initial pricing to figure out what would fit and what it might cost. And I think at that time, then we had a work session with council and kind of looked at some super high density options and then some more lower density options, and then decided at that point, let's bring on somebody to actually sort of just kind of pursue this and design it, and then potentially move into construction if we could agree on the price for the construction of the project. So that was our RFP process, which we completed. And, the next step, it really is, if we do want to move forward with construction, is to approve the development contract with the developer. And so we've discussed that over the last 13 days as well, and have made some changes, which we will review with you in executive session, subject of negotiation. I think when we were here the last two work sessions, there's a lot of concern just about the economy in general, and a lot of concerns about risk and cost escalation and federal policies. And is this the time to do a project? Is this not the time to do a project? There was some conversation about why don't we sort of start and recheck our pricing and see if we can get it at a lower price to make us all feel a little bit more comfortable. And we've talked a lot about whether there's any benefit to that. And at this point, we don't feel there's any benefit to sort of pausing, delaying, postponing for the purpose of trying to get a better price. I think we've come up with a design, and we've come up with great pricing from our developer partner. But in terms of pausing, I don't think it is beneficial to the project. But obviously, it's an option that's available. We did, after our meeting last work session, we really spent more time with our third-party consultant and got him to vet this budget and to look to see, is our pricing reasonable or in line with what his expectations would be for a project this size at this time in a resort community. And I think, we've got his opinion, and it's, this is a really good hard costs, really good vertical costs. The infrastructure costs are good, and they're what he would expect to see in terms of the ratio of your hard cost to your soft cost, your infrastructure costs. There was really nothing that sort of stuck out as like, this is out of line. I wouldn't see this in a contract. I wouldn't expect to see something like this in the contract. So we did get a vetting of the project budget and of our development contract from our third-party consultant. We can review that a little bit more as we talk about negotiating the specific terms in executive session. I think our cost at $370 a square foot for vertical, when you compare those to other projects that are currently under construction, very recently constructed, really compare super well to the range that we see, that's 450 to 482, and we're at 370 with this project. So we had really no concerns about the vertical costs. The soft costs represent about 11% of our total project. That's significantly lower than the industry standards of 15 to 30%. So we felt really good about that. As a part of our budget, the fee for design and architecture and engineering is 3% compared to 6 to 9 is what you would expect. So I think as a result of kind of going back and really working with our third-party consultant, we feel even better about the pricing that we're presenting, and that our developer partner believes that she can get are very good prices. So I think another issue with potentially trying to find better pricing through some sort of pause is that we do lose the 3 million in infrastructure grants that we have. So from our perspective, it's not worth the time spent to try to reprice this. So I think it's important to note that, we think we're at about, in terms of the town's actual subsidy, we're at about 350,000 per unit. And that compares really well to what we pay on housing helps or buy downs. And the quality of the units is just night and day. You can't compare what we're getting through housing helps with what we're building as a new product that's net zero and without the issues of some of the older inventory that we're acquiring through housing helps. But I think in terms of checks and balances and the whole idea about due diligence, it was really good to hear from you. We knew that we needed to mitigate as much risk as possible. So we've inserted a lot of additional sort of checks and balances along the way. And Keely's got several new sort of steps in our development agreement and quarterly meetings about pricing, weekly price checks. I think the biggest thing we're doing to minimize our risk is the two big phases. There's no commitment at all to phase 2. We're talking about phase 1. We will evaluate when the time comes if it's appropriate to move forward with phase 2 or postpone indefinitely. I think that's the biggest thing we're doing in terms of minimizing our risk, but then also these check-ins are going to keep us in line along the way. Let's see. Developer fee, there's a lot of conversation at our last meeting about developer fee, and really grateful. We had a conversation with the developer and have negotiated that down from 7% to 4%. Which just we're thankful for that and appreciate the willingness on their part to work with us on this project. I think everybody understands, these are a little bit, scary times. And so anything we can do to sort of reduce the concerns is a good thing. As a summary, we're looking at, first phase subsidy from the town of about $33 million that covers the 33, 32, 32, 33. I think that's our subsidy. We are fortunate to have how many grants already approved? 2 million, 3. Yeah. So, that's not going to come off the top of that. The actual cost will probably be 35-ish minus the grant. So our subsidy is going to be 33, 32-ish. We do want to review the budget and the contract in executive because we're going to be negotiating the final terms. And so with that, I would wrap up my introduction and open for any questions and then suggest we move into exec.
Okay, anybody have any questions for open session? I know it's hard to know exactly what's an open session and what's.
Can you talk about the $3 million grant that we got and what the parameters are on it?
Yeah, the issue, there's 2 different grants. One was obtained about a year ago. And it is for infrastructure. So we have to actually spend the money, then we could submit for reimbursement. But we have to complete that work by the end of next summer in order to be eligible for that. That's 1.5, 1.9. And then the other one is a more recent one that we got, and that's $1 million. And same kind of deal, when they give you these grants, we are telling them we're shovel ready. and ready to start building. In reality, we were almost a year from being shovel ready when we got the first grant. We didn't kind of recognize probably it would take us that long to get through to actually breaking ground. But the other one's about $1 million, and that one would also have that 2-year thing. You have to have the work completed within 2 years of getting that grant. So
And just a little bit on the grants, sort of justifying why we apply for them so far.
Yeah.
Because it takes 6 to 9 months to get the grant finalized. Even though you're awarded, it takes them a really long time to get the contract and everything. And then you have the time to spend. So it makes sense to apply that far in advance, only because it takes them so long. And what we found before is if we are applying close to the time we're actually breaking ground, we want to start work, the contract isn't done on the grant, and you can't start any work until you have the contract. So it's sort of a fine dance of when we apply.
enter into a contract to start work. So whoever you are contracting with can't even go out and pre-buy all the items that they're going to need. So you have to do it in advance. Questions?
Jay, do you have more? Okay. I've got one. I guess I want to first start with, I'm on the housing committee and I see how hard you work in Mel, our whole housing team. I've seen the stables and I just need to kind of do some background first and then I'll ask the question. And I've seen what you've accomplished at the stables, Suzanne. It's phenomenal. And I'm so grateful and appreciative for the work and the expertise and the trust that's there. And I feel like through this process, I don't want any feelings to get hurt that there's lack of trust. I don't want any feelings to get hurt that there's a lack of confidence, right? We're up here as the guardian of the dollars, and we're talking about, 30 to 50 million dollars. And so 10% overage or underage could be $3 to $5 million. We can do a lot of housing. A lot of housing helps a lot with $3 to $5 million. We're sitting here having our finance department look at cash flow out 5 years. It feels like it's very, very important that we as council get these agreements and everything right up front and give the staff the tools to do your job. My experience with business, I've had a business partner for over 35 years, and we've done a few projects that she has financed. And we always talk about the hit by the bus clause. Something tragic happens and one of the partners is no longer there. And we have to write our agreements to protect us and have that hit by the bus clause. But this is business and we really need to protect ourselves. And it's not something that we all do all the time. So we need the time to digest these documents. I read them 4 times if it's a legal document, like some that we're going to talk about in exec session. And it's super important. And then we need the attorneys if we want to make changes to negotiate and to get a final doc. And so I just bear with us, be patient as we try to get through this, because you only get one chance to get it right up front. And if you screw something up front, you can have problems for the entire duration of the project. And I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it, Suzanne, and it's a lot of money. So one thing I would like to see us have, to my question, I would like to see a spreadsheet. And well, I guess by our next meeting, when we're asked to look at this developer agreement and possibly look at a first reading, that would allow Suzanne enough time to get the maximum price on the horizontal construction and go back to the bidder and ask for the value engineering and go back to the bidder and ask them to sharpen their pencil and do all of the work that we heard Shannon Smith talk about on the ball fields and see what we can save. But assuming 2 weeks is enough time for her to do that, you know, with that number, I would like to see a spreadsheet that includes that fixed number that we know is what the number is going to be. And then it, you know, projects out all of the expenses of these 81 units of phase one. And with the last number being, what is the town subsidy? Have a revenue line item that is our projected sales prices of all the different units that we're hoping to acquire and sell to our workforce. And after the revenue, what's left? What are we, the town, the citizens of the town? We're hearing 32 to 33 million today. Well, that's where I want to look at that number and work backwards. And if we're starting to get out of whack is when we start diving into the numbers and the details. And that's how, for me, and all of us are going to do this a little differently based on expertise. But for me, that's how I can stay at a high level and try to do the work that we need to do. And we need to have protections along the way where if that number's starting to go up, we can go to our partner or a staff or the whole team and say, what are the variables? How can we get that number back in line, you know, without blowing up the whole deal? You know, and when we have a whole lot of language like mutually acceptable and things like that, it's just a huge red flag if that damn bus rolls along. Because we don't know who we're going to be trying to become mutually acceptable with. So I feel a need to try to, we're never gonna get rid of all that language in an agreement like this, but we certainly should, it should be incumbent upon us to try to get rid of as much of that as possible. And so this is not personal, this is business, but we have to take the personal out of it. And we have to put the numbers into it and the legalese into it and try to get this right up front. So my question is, can we do the spreadsheet and can we keep a close eye on that spreadsheet? Not as our only matrix we're watching. I'm psyched to hear you guys are looking at pricing weekly and all of those other things. That's awesome. You've got more expertise than I do in that. And I'm psyched that our skilled team is going to be looking at that. But I really want to watch that big number and be able to toggle all the things that make it up along the way. To protect us and the citizens. And Dave, it's mostly gray, but not to give Dave any more gray hair up there in finance. So
can I ask a question about that on this topic? So I'm wondering, I mean, I guess the way I see this is that 32 to 33 million is the number that we're telling you we are comfortable with. That's the money we have to spend on this project. And then in my mind, you're doing the spreadsheet and you guys are looking at all the projected all the way out to make sure no matter the ups and downs, you're staying under the number that we gave you, right?
Right.
And so I guess I'm not, Keely, I don't know if this is something that you could weigh in on, because to me, it seems like there's a level of detail that I don't think we need to get into. I understand that there are some details that may be pertinent to council, but I guess I'm thinking of that's our responsibility, is to look at that that final number, and their responsibility is to make sure it doesn't go above that.
I think there's a couple things. One is that the way this is set up, so the developer agreement is the framework. And then there are, within that agreement, there are multiple points at which the council has additional decision-making, including with the guaranteed maximum price agreement for horizontal infrastructure plus the budget. And Dick, what you're talking about right now is literally the budget that you will be asked to approve, and that nothing in that developer agreement can go forward until council has approved that budget. So this is your sort of, I think, one of the things we've talked a lot about is did we not put all of this together in front of you in a way that made sense? And I think that is maybe part of our issue, is that it would be helpful for you to have the guaranteed maximum price for horizontal infrastructure, the developer agreement, and the budget all at the same time. I think our hope is that you will get all of those at the first reading of the developer agreement. But we needed to get through the developer agreement and have everybody comfortable with that before we move forward with the other two pieces. But those are critical. Those are absolute baseline within that developer agreement. There is no project unless the council agrees to that budget. And that's where that 32 to 33 million number comes in, including the bottom line per unit subsidy of the town. That is all required to be in the budget per the terms of the developer agreement. So you will get all of that. And then, based on the additional information that we've put into the developer agreement with these check-ins, then as Kelly's saying, once you guys have said, this is it, right? Then there's consequences for the developer if the project goes over budget. And that's where all of those check-ins come in, where, we're checking in with the developer. And then there's also continuing decision points for town council as well.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into some more of that in executive session, because we've added some additional sort of phasing language in the last, really even since the agreement went into the packet. So we have new things to walk through with you in a little bit. So hopefully that kind of helps. But yes, once you guys have approved that number, and that has to be that you have to formally approve it at a public meeting before anything else can happen. And then it is staff's job essentially from that point on to make sure that those, the project stays within that approved budget. Does that help?
Very helpful. And I wanted to say this with Suzanne in the room before we go into executive session, and all of our staff, because everybody's working so hard working towards this, and we're all learning as we go. So it's an important process. So
We're especially.
A lot to Staples Village, so, and the last 13 days.
All right, any other questions? Can we get a motion to go into executive session?
Yes. Can I get a motion under 24-6402 for A, B, and E to discuss two different items? One, the runway development that's located in the fraction and block 11 subdivisions. And the second item is to discuss the acquisition of a parcel of real property located in the Upper Blue Basin. For all three of those, you'll be discussing either the acquisition, lease, or transfer of real property. You'll be receiving legal advice, and you'll also be determining positions relative to negotiations.
On favor? Okay. Are we all set? Back in open session, we have two things to make decisions on. The first will be the runway presentation. We have several staff recommendations that we are going to decide on. And first is council comfortable with the developer fee presented as 4%?
yes, with the changes to the agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And these are all predicated on the changes that were discussed with legal counsel in executive session. Okay. Are we comfortable moving forward with first reading on May 27th, knowing that there were many things that were discussed today, and that would just be first reading? Steve?
Yes. Based on discussion, exec session, yes.
Yes. As well. And we've given other feedback, so we aren't going to discuss any more in open session. Staff has what they need to move forward on first reading.
I think you've duly instructed the negotiators and we will go forth and negotiate.
Thank you, Suzanne, for your partnership in this, and we look forward to moving forward on this project. Second thing to talk about is that we received information in executive session about
A property acquisition, yep, in the upper blue.
Yep, and provided the negotiators with instructions that they will move forward with.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, I think you're good. Yep.
All right, anything else?
No, unless you want to do.
I feel like we've had enough. Thank you very much for offering. Anyone else have anything else? All right, we're gonna adjourn and we'll be back at 7. Are we ready, Helen? Okay, the time is now 7 o'clock. I'm gonna call the town council regular meeting for May 13th to order. Roll call, please, Helen.
Marika Page,
Here.
Dick Carlton,
Here.
Steve Gerard,
Here.
Carol Sade, Jay Beckerman, Todd Rankin. Vince.
Approval of the minutes, town council minutes for April 8th and April 30th. Any changes? Minutes stand. Approval of the agenda. Shannon, any changes?
No changes.
Okay, the agenda stands. Communications to council. This is the time for public comment. It's anything that's non-agenda item. 3-minute time limit, please. And I believe we have one, at least, maybe several. Go ahead and go up to the lectern and state your name for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Joy Lukasiewicz. I am the Summit Baseball Youth Administrator, as well as a parent volunteer for the Summit High School Tigers American Legion Baseball Club. And we just wanted to come here today to thank Town Council for the turf field. We were able to have over 20 games this year at home compared to last year of 0. My son was a senior last year, so he had 0 home games, no senior night, and what a difference this has made for our community. So we wanted to say thank you very much. It has been a true game changer in our community. We've been able to bring kids from the age of 3 to grandparents, 85, coming to watch the games here on the field. And yeah, it really made a big difference in our community.
We did have one,
Snow game.
but it didn't matter because it wasn't grass.
And we could still play.
And I'm Elizabeth Tobias, and I'm the president of Summit Youth Baseball. Thank you so much. What you don't realize is we have 400 kids in our Summit Youth Baseball program. And what you guys decided to do gives them excitement, energy, right? They're going to keep going and they're going to play high school baseball. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We wanted to present this to you.
Thank you very much. You have our complete attention, Nathan. Go ahead.
Oh,
It's okay. We can look at it afterwards. You go ahead. Thank you.
Ethan Guerra, 25 Sisler Green. First of all, I'd like to state that I make these comments as a citizen and a constituent. Additionally, I do not and will not have any business connection or financial interest in the runway project. Want to make that clear. So, good evening, Mayor Owens and Council. I would like to open by saying that I am supportive of the community's investment in workforce housing. I appreciate the work of staff and council on the runway project. That said, as I look at the details of the deed restrictions and the inclusion of ADUs in the project, I am left wondering about the long-term socioeconomic consequences. I am increasingly concerned that as we apply different deed restrictions, financial restrictions, and ADUs to the products that we offer, that we are boosting the potential accumulation of wealth of those able to buy the higher end units while restricting the potential of those that are only able to purchase the lower end units. I bring up these issues to encourage us all to examine these nuanced topics as we move forward. First, I would like to examine the potential effects of the standard and light deed restrictions. While I understand the justification behind the application of standard deed restrictions to the lower cost, higher subsidized units, and the application of light deed restrictions to the higher cost, lower subsidized units, are we not perpetuating the institutional financial subjugation of those on the lower socioeconomic scale by allowing the more financially fortunate the opportunity to build wealth by unrestricted appreciation while restricting the less fortunate from that same opportunity? Secondly, I would like to examine the proposed rule that would restrict those that are less financially fortunate from the ability to own, retain additional real estate, while at the same time allowing those more financially fortunate the ability to own, retain additional real estate. Does this not unfairly restrict the upward mobility of those on the lower socioeconomic scale? Finally, I would like to examine the issue of including the ability to have an ADU that can provide additional income only for those purchasing the higher priced, lower subsidized single-family units. Are we not subsidizing the ability of those that are more financially fortunate, the ability to build wealth while perpetuating the social stratification of our community? I have included a spreadsheet that illustrates in detail the financial inequities that I have discussed here. In short, winning the housing lottery that allows one to purchase a 4-bedroom home with an ADU would in effect be winning a financial trifecta underwritten by the taxpayers.
Ethan, I'm sorry, your time is up, but I think you shared that memo with council. Is that correct?
I got enough said. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
the
for-
opportunity to share my concerns.
Thank you very much. Lots to consider there. All right, any other comments from the public? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming. Ethan, we appreciate your comments and absolutely will take them. Thank you so much to Tiger Baseball. It's wonderful to hear that your kids are thriving in Summit County. That's always what we're aiming for here in Breckenridge and on town council, and just really glad that the community, this is so well received by the community, and we're happy to have it too. So thank you very much.
And thanks for all the athletic moms that make sports happen for our youth. Because we know you guys do all the work.
Yeah, that's true. All right, public comment is closed. We're going to move on to the Breckenridge Tourism Office update. Lucy, that's you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start with a quick update on lodging. We are fully back on board with key data. So all the inventory that historically has been in there is back. So we've been apples to apples, but now it's more complete. Given that, room nights, the guest nights are down 14%. This is as of Monday. And revenue is not down so much, it's 6%, so it's about $1 million. I'm estimating that by year end, we're going to be somewhere in the 5 to 10% down. It's just really hard to predict with the economy swinging the way it is. And I think our guests are probably in that set that are really going to wait until closer in to book. Let's see, the annual meeting, June 18th, we're going to have key data in as our keynote speaker. I think that's important for them to be here, just, so we're back on track. And we met with them today. We'll ask them to start with the macro view on what's happening with destination lodging, resort lodging, nationally, then regionally, then looking closer into Breckenridge and some of the comp set. They've got some really interesting insights that they've shared with us so far, and the data that we'll be presenting on the 18th will be like within a week of being current on the national level. So that should be really good. It'll be in here at 8:30. We are lining up Breck 101. This is our frontline employee orientation. We've got 100 employees registered so far. It's still early. 15 businesses are participating. This will run May 23rd to June 15th. And this is that experiential kind of training. So they'll get to go on raft trips, have dinners, experience the destination the way our guests do. The trivia night that is a huge hit is May 21st. And I believe, Carol, you have or will be distributing an invite for council to attend that if they'd like to. Super popular. That'll be a Broken Compass. And what we've learned with this over the years is while it was intended to be just another training educational kind of function, it really is an event that builds community for these new employees because they meet everybody else that doesn't know anybody, and it's really kind of a nice thing. After that, we'll move into Breck Pride. That's June 9 through 15th. We have a great headliner for the Saturday entertainment, and that's Jordy. He performs nationally at a lot of these Pride events and has a huge following. So I think this is going to be a real boost for our event, along with the incredible support we have from the business community. We have events every day of the week from the 9th through the 15th. And I'd like to call out just some of the participating businesses that are helping out with this. RMU, Broken Compass, the Distillery, Eclipse Theater, Continental Divide Winery, our own rec center, Ready Paint Fire, Kenosha. We'll also have FERC Building Hope and Mountain Pride are also going to be involved. So as the community is really embracing and supporting this event, which is just awesome. And lastly, July 4th, we've got everything in place for that. We've got 20 floats so far, 2 marching bands. Maj is still working on mascots, but I'm sure we'll have some of those as well. And then the long discussed Cirque Mechanics, the pedal punk will start at 4:30. So we hope we will keep people in town for the day and into the evening with that one. So questions?
Sounds great. Thank you, Lucy. Questions?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to continued business. Second reading of Council Bill number 6, Series 2025, an ordinance amending and replacing Title 4, Chapter 5 of the Breckenridge Town Code regarding retail tobacco business licensing.
Mayor Owens and Town Council, before you for second reading is the retail tobacco business licensing ordinance that would change the town code to prohibit the sale of flavored nicotine and tobacco products, as well as a prohibition on discounts on the sale of tobacco products. This has been discussed at multiple meetings leading up to this. No changes from first reading, which occurred on the 8th of April. And be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, present it to you for second reading tonight.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions? All right, any comments from the public on Council Bill number 6, Series 2025?
Good evening, Council and Mayor, and thank you for hearing from the Youth Empowerment Society of Summit. And yes, My name is Kayla Perez Lopez. I'm a Summit High School student.
And my name is Esau Hernandez, and I'm also a Summit High School student. We are here today to re-emphasize the importance of the upcoming town council decision that makes impact our health and our future, ending the sale of all flavored nicotine products, and to tell you why. We know some of you might be thinking it's my choice, but when those choices are being manipulated by big tobacco companies, is not really a choice at all. They're targeting us with flavors like cotton candy and mango, making nicotine seem harmless and fun. But the truth is, it's a dangerous trap.
Let's get real with some numbers. These aren't just opinions, they're facts. 16 million. That's how many Americans are living with a disease caused by smoking. And smoking is the leading cause of preventable death in the world. 2.5 million. That's how many middle and high school students are in the US were currently using e-cigarettes in 2022. That's a huge number and it's growing. 85%. That's the percentage of young e-cigarette users, especially flavored ones. They're not using tobacco flavors. They're hooked on what's the sweet stuff. Nicotine addiction can start in days. It's not a joke. Nicotine is highly addictive and our developing brains are especially vulnerable. Studies show that youths can become dependent much faster than adults. Increased anxiety and depression. Research links nicotine use in teens higher rates of anxiety and depression. We're already dealing with enough stress. We don't need nicotine making it worse. Lung damage. Vaping isn't just water vapor. E-cigarettes contain harmful chemicals like formaldehyde, arsenic, and heavy materials that can damage our lungs. Also, these names I can barely pronounce. I don't think they should be in our bodies. Studies show the increased risk of asthma and other respiratory problems in teens that vape.
Cardiovascular risk. Nicotine raises blood pressure and heart rate, increasing the risk of heart disease later in life. We're talking about long-term consequences. Brain development disruption. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, impulse control, isn't fully developed until our mid-20s. Nicotine interferes with this development, leading to problems with attention, learning, and memory. Increased risk of traditional smoking. Vape is a gateway for young people who vape 4 times more likely to start smoking traditional cigarettes. This ban isn't about taking away anyone's freedom. It's about protecting our right to a healthy future. It's about stopping big tobacco companies from manipulating us with candy-flavored poison.
We are the generation that's supposed to change the world. We can't do that if we're hooked on nicotine. We need to be strong, healthy, and focused. This ban is a step in the right direction. Let's spread the word, and let's make our community a healthier and safer place for younger people. Let's stand together and say no to flavored nicotine.
Thank you for your time tonight, and we urge you to ban flavored nicotine.
Very much, Kayla and Issa. All right, any other comments from the public? Okay, public comment is closed. Can I have a motion?
On second reading, I move that we approve Council Bill number 6, Series 2025, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? I just wanted to say to the yes group and to the high schoolers who've come, this is absolutely, ban, sorry, this ban is absolutely coming from you guys. You asked for this and we were thrilled to be able to support you in this way. But this is you guys making a difference and you're already changing the world. So well done. All right. Roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Gerard,
Yes.
Mayor Owens.
Yes. All right, moving on to new business, we're going into first reading of Council Bills number 7, Series 2025, an ordinance approving an extension to a development agreement with Christie Heights Partnership, a California general partnership, extended vested property rights, Cucumber Creek Estates, first reading.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Kulik for the record. Tonight at first reading, I have a bill for your consideration that would extend the current development agreement or amend the current development agreement to extend the vesting on the Cucumber Creek Estates master plan by an additional 5 years to January 9th, 2030. We've provided a comprehensive memo that really outlines the history of this parcel and really a lot of the past commitments that the ownership group has dedicated to the town and worked with the town to preserve open space in the area. And at tonight's amendment, they are not proposing any further substantial commitments, but really a continuation to delay the development of the last piece of this master plan. They are also offering a first of right offer to the town for the future purchase of the property if it were to go on sale. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions related to this bill at first reading. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions from the council? No? All right. Any comments from the public on Council Bill number 7, Series 2025? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Can I have a motion?
On first reading, I'd like to make the motion to approve Council Bill number 7, Series 2025, title of which has been read into the record.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Councilmember Gerard,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Mayor Owens.
Yes. All right, we have no resolutions, so we're moving into planning matters, planning commission decisions for May 6th, 2025. All right. Decisions stand and into the Runway Neighborhood Master Plan Town Project hearing. Amelia.
Thank you very much. Got to move this way down. All right, thank you very much, Mayor and council members. My name is Amelia Brackett. I'm a planner with the town. I've met most of you, but not all of you, so thank you very much for having me. Yes, thank you, whoever's doing that magic up there. That can stay there for my presentation, that slide. Thank you. So before you tonight is a town project hearing for the Runway Neighborhood Master Plan Amendment. Just to note that the applicant is here with the presentation. They're going to be covering a little bit more of the detail of the site layout, livability, and I'm going to focus my limited time on code compliance for you all. But for the record, I just want to give a bit of general information. So I'm going to start by saying, of course, as we're all very familiar, the Runway project has a number of moving parts. This is the master plan amendment. It's specifically basically updating the master plan that is currently on the property to make development possible. It sort of stands in parallel with all of the conversations about funding, but can move forward and be analyzed independent of those conversations. This area has been slated for workforce housing since 2007, and all other parts of the master plan that's being amended here have been developed for workforce housing except for this one. Also, just to note that even though this is an amendment to the plan, there is no use or density changes from what's allowed currently. So this proposal before you includes 148 units. That's when fully built out across both phases. They'd be deed restricted with an AMI target of between 80 and 160%. At least that's the current target. And they also feature a mix of units. So single family, that includes the cottages that you read about, duplexes, and townhomes. There's also a minimum of 145 units that's written into the master plan. And I want to use this 145 to 148 unit count to illustrate something that staff and the applicant have tried to work on with this iteration of the plan, which is basically to build in a certain amount of flexibility to the project while also giving as clear guidance as we can. That's very much with attention to the fact that this is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar project, and that while phase one may be implemented within, let's say, a year or two, phase two, the timeline is much longer. And so what we've tried to do is give clear guidance on the goals as we understand them, while also making it possible for some things to change if needed. One of the examples of that would be the unit types. So there is the statement that there should be a mix of unit types, that there should be a minimum and a maximum for the density. But some of the details, whether there's going to be, for instance, 21 or 25 of a certain type of unit, could be amended the way the staff has tried to draft this in the future if needed. So again, trying to hit that balance, if you can imagine them like bumper lanes, right? And when bowling, trying to give us enough guidance we can move forward, but not to the point where we're stuck having to go through the whole process again if there needs to be some changes. And I can imagine that that's the Silverthorne PD letting us know. Hopefully that everybody's okay over there.
Everything's fine.
Great. All right. So just to run through a couple of things here. This plan, staff finds that it meets basically a number of different requirements I'm going to run through. One is parking. So each, I won't go through every parking requirement, but basically it's met per our code requirements. And then any guest and public parking you see on the plan, that's actually in addition. Another important thing about parking is that the properties that can have ADUs have been sketched out so that they can also accommodate additional parking for those ADUs. So parking has been met. We've looked, of course, at architectural compatibility, height, landscaping, open space, snow storage. This plan accommodates all of those per code. In addition, engineering and planning staff reviewed the circulation. I'll just say very top level, Floridora is getting extended to the south. And the design was really with the intent of slowing traffic, since we have had some resident concerns in the area to the north, just to ensure that traffic is sort of being managed that way. And then the alleyways the alleyways across the rest of the plan will provide pedestrian access during the winter. And then also, of course, that's access to all of the lots are through alleys. Let's see, what else? A couple of other things just to highlight before I summarize the point analysis. One is that we've got to talk about the dumpsters for the duplexes, because technically what we're proposing tonight does not meet an absolute policy that requires that dumpsters have basically shared facilities, shared refuse when there's 3 or more in a development. That's an policy. The town does have the option to not follow absolute policies with careful consideration on our own projects. And I just want to say sustainability has looked at this plan. It needs to be acknowledged. It's acknowledged in the findings and conditions that this is what we're proposing to do. But it really is about the fact that the duplexes and the single families are mixed together in a way that they're really generally not in other types of developments. And so staff finds that there's not an issue, and potentially this would be an improved refuse plan for the development. All right, one more big list of things to run through, and that would be the point analysis. So we've got +3 under policy 20R for recreation. That relates to the fact that there are multiple access points to recreation opportunities around the property and the development. And then also that there are spaces that are still being designed, but that are accommodating facilities for residents on site. And also under social community, policy 24R, have +10 points for the fact that this is workforce housing, 100% deed restricted. And also for meeting a council goal of workforce housing, +16. Then on the negative side, there's -6 points under policy 5R relating to use of non-natural materials. And then -3, I won't get super technical on this, but there's one townhome that won't meet an absolute or a relative setback under the placement of structures policy. And so that brings the project to -3 for that specific policy. And so with all of that, +19 and -9, we've got a positive point analysis of 10. So finally, I do just want to acknowledge that staff provided some information on the TDR as it stands across the town currently, with outstanding projects to be transferred and then also ones that have already been transferred. see that there is enough to accommodate this development as it's proposed, and that there's something like 100+ units left over. So you do have any questions about that, or if you need any additional information for your analysis, please let us know. And finally, staff is recommending approval of this master plan amendment. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here with a presentation, and I'm of course happy to take any questions that you have.
Much, Amelia. Nice job. Questions? I have one. Have you received much feedback or many concerns from neighbors or anyone in the community on the master plan?
I have not. We certainly haven't received any direct public comment in any of the sort of traditional channels. I think I'm blanking on the person or the exact concern, but there was, I think, one person at Planning Commission who questioned the status of maybe an easement or how the infrastructure would work, but nothing about the plan itself.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
I have one question about the positive points assigned under 24R. So we have 10 points for 100% deed restricted housing. Can you talk about the 6 points of meet 2024 council goals? I just want to make sure that's not double dipping if it's housing.
Redundant. Absolutely, yeah. So there's certainly about the same thing, right, about providing workforce housing. And I have off the cuff, I'm not going to remember what the different applications were, but I know for Stables, that's kind of how the point allocation worked, that there's the ability to have both points for the 100% deed restricted explicitly. And then in addition, you can also get points for meeting a council goal. It could be some other type of council goal. I don't know, all purple houses or whatever it might be. But in this case, it does happen to be the same sort of concept, but it's possible to have, both of them be allocated.
Thank you for explaining that.
Could be like sustainability. We didn't want to really double dip.
Did staff look at doing shared material enclosures for the entire plan to be able to reach that absolute goal, that absolute metric?
Right, for the refuse plan points. Yeah, absolutely. So we kicked this one around a fair bit with sustainability engineering planning. And we did look at, for instance, like a regional, whatever the fancy word for it would be, but like sort of a recycling site, right? So looked at sort of options for that. Would this be a pilot program? Would this be, what really looks like it could work? And I think there's a couple things that came out of that brainstorming. One was that functionally, the impact of having the dumpsters have individual service is pretty negligible because they're going to be along single family routes, right? And so it's just going to be another place for the trash service to pick up. The other piece about this, about having them be individual, that one sort of being just sort of a neutral impact, but a potential positive impact from our sustainability team was that these dumpsters, especially when there are a lot of them in little pockets of places, can become sort of general dump sites. And so they thought that this would actually be maybe even a better result from a cleanliness perspective. And then in terms of like your specific question, having one location for everything, I think this is served, nearby with Coin Valley. And just from looking at it from a holistic perspective, having another spot here it didn't seem like it would make sense for the amount of infrastructure that would have to go into that on this site.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? All right. Any comments from the public on the combined runway master plan? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Can I have a motion?
The developer.
The applicant has a presentation.
Whole other one. Great. Sorry.
You guys have our presentation by any chance? I think I sent that over. Okay, thank you. Good evening, council and mayor. Lindsay Newman with Norris Design. I am joined here tonight by our runway team. We have Suzanne Allen Sabo with Neighborhood Crafters. We have Dan Chapman with Allen Guerra Architects and Toria Idella with Norris Design. I didn't mention I'm Lindsay Newman with Norris Design. Did I say that? Okay. I was on leave the last time we were in front of you for this project, so I'm excited to be back here tonight at this stage of our master plan process. And Amelia did a really great job running through kind of what we've done since we've seen you last, but we do want to reinforce that vision and just providing the single family duplex homes with some townhomes to really create this desirable and livable neighborhood for our community, and create a continuum of homes that are for sale for this neighborhood, to build upon what we've created with Blue 52 and the Uller neighborhood and Codo Flats and Denison Commons. Some of the key considerations we've kept throughout this whole project are neighborhood gathering spaces and pocket parks, ensuring that we're providing enough open space for our residents so that this is truly livable. Sufficient parking, which we'll get into a little more detail on that. Multimodal connectivity and sustainability. You can go to the next slide. We all know where this site is. We are very close to the elementary school to the south, so making connections there. And also to our river park to the north, as well as our new neighborhoods that we've created to the north as well. Existing conditions, just a reminder that we did have a lot of challenges with this site, just based on some of the easements that are already here. So you can see that we have those highlighted in red, and those did inform our design quite a bit. And the site plan. So we've further refined this since you've seen it last. We have looked at providing additional parking, not just for guests, but also for residents, to think about how we could stack parking so that if there is an ADU, we're meeting those needs. We can show you a diagram with that. We've also identified 2 planning areas. So we have our planning area to the north that is for snow storage and more public works needs, to make sure that we're really providing an operational need here as well. Also, as a reminder, we align this whole neighborhood with solar access in mind, so that it has a north-south alleys and roads, with our homes facing east-west, which really provides for really great sunlight, both on the front porches and the backyards and the parking, so that hopefully we're not creating a situation where we have really icy driveways or front yards. Just wanted to touch on the trash really quick. Another item with having the individual trash we talked about with the sustainability team was just the importance of when you have your own trash, especially as we look at the pay-as-you-throw program, it really provides that responsibility to the individual homeowners of what they're throwing away, and we're not getting large items in our dumpsters and things like that that just aren't really what the intention is for, home trash. So that was another reason why we felt that providing our own trash would be a great way to enhance our sustainability. And with that, I will turn it to Tori just to go over a couple of our more detailed items.
Alrighty, I'll try to be very, very brief. We can go to the next slide. Parking, so much fun. I just want to highlight that we were able to maximize the parking on site without making it feel like a parking lot. We were able to get about 3 parking spaces per unit when you break it down that way. So we were able to get 42 guest parking spaces. So that's beyond our required parking spaces on our individual lots or for the townhome parking spaces. But then even in addition to that, we were able to get 42 parking spaces for unit tandem parking spaces on some of our deeper lots. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to maximize livability. People are going to have birthday parties. People are going to have parents come over or grandparents come over and stay. We understand that. We know that. We want to make sure that people have a place to park and visit our friends. So that's what we were trying to do. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting that and making this neighborhood as livable as possible. Go ahead. Snow storage. I love snow storage. It's so much fun. So what this is showing is that we are able to meet the snow storage on site. Obviously, with the alleys and neighborhood walks, we're showing a lot more snow storage than is required. What we know is that a lot of that is going to go down once we start adding landscape and other amenities. But what we're showing now is that we're very confident that we can accommodate the required snow storage on site. Traffic calming. So obviously we have the Upper Blue Elementary to the south. We want to provide safe routes to school within this neighborhood, and we want to make sure that Floridor Drive is being able to slow down. So we have a couple of ways that we're doing that. We have some curves here. We worked with Public Works on that. We have a couple of different controlled intersections, we have crosswalks as well as speed tables. We have a couple of proposed bus stops, which also makes people kind of slow down. So we have a couple of different ways that we're trying to slow down Floridora, provide some safe crossings, and make sure that that 10-foot walk that we're providing on the east side of Floridora is very safe for our kids to get to school. We can go through these intersections, or excuse me, sections really quick, but this is just an example section of Floridora Drive. These are, top is existing and bottom is proposed of what our access looks like today up top and what it'll look like as runway gets installed. Same here, but different location. All right, here's our phasing exhibit. So we're just breaking it down into 2 phases as of right now, moving north to south. And then here's a super fun exhibit for trash enclosure locations. But as we mentioned before, we're kind of making sure that those are close to our townhomes. Here's a great rendering that Alan Gare was able to provide for us. This is the view from Highway 9 towards the site. Right now, obviously, it's a dirt parking lot, but looking through the trees, we're able to see our beautiful neighborhood, also mixed in with some trees where there's not easement, and just highlighting what a beautiful view it will be in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Tori. Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks, Norris Designs and all the team. All right, I'll just go back to public comment because I'm not 100% sure where I was. All right, any comments from the public on the runway master plan? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve town project PL-2025-0034.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade, Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Gerard,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Owens.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. And we're moving into report of the town manager and staff.
I just have a couple things, a few things for you. Just a reminder that Peyton sent out an email about signing up for grilling shifts at Town Party. We still have 12 to 1 and 1 to 2 open. And then also a reminder that on Monday, the 19th, there is a coffee talk between the mayor, the town, and Red, White, and Blue. That's at Cool River from 8:30 to 9:30. And another reminder that the next meeting will be the council retreat, and we will be starting at noon.
Is that here?
It is. And we will have lunch for you.
Okay, great. Anything else? All right, well, you can keep going because I wasn't at MMC.
So just a few highlights. Elevated Community Health, which was formerly the Care Clinic, gave a presentation on their, the people that they're serving, and then kind of summed it all up with information about the purchase of Dr. Strange's dental practice, and an ask from the county and then also from the towns to help to fund at least a one-time funding for that project. We just received this week a letter asking for funding, but we really haven't had a chance to fully vet it and review it. So, if it makes sense to come back and ask for funding for the Elevated Community Health, we'll come back to you with something on that. Dylan mentioned, as you know, that Waste Management is doing pay-as-you-throw across the county, so they're rethinking their need to do an ordinance. And then there were some updates from the county, just generally, some overall concern about the economy and their budget. kind of an exciting thing. They mentioned that Copper has been talking to the county about a World Cup event there this coming season. Even though they are not doing micro transit, they are still moving forward with the idea of the RTA, which would have a November 2026 ballot question. I think that's it.
All right. Okay. Sounds great. All right, Breckenridge Open Space Advisory.
I have a little bit to add color to the minutes that were in the packet. First thing is I have dates for Friends of Rec Trails Trail Days. The first one is on May 31st, and the second one will be on June 7th. So just kind of throwing those out there if you can make it. I know the crew always loves that. We also have our open space and trails open house this Monday at the rec center from 5 to 7. We'd love to see everyone there. I think it's we've really made a concerted effort to get this out to our community that loves open space and trails to actually join. Last year we headed up at Peak 8, and although it was a beautiful setting, we didn't get as much participation as we would have liked. So please spread the word on that. Nikki and Dave nominated to be chair and vice chair, and so that was excited to see them accept those. And the Breck OST website, so it's breckost.com, I believe, has now trail conditions that are overlaid with the trail map. So you can click on, Mini-Mine on the map and it tells you if it's dry, if it's muddy, what's going on. So there, kudos to Alex for making that happen. We already went over Pact. That was pretty exciting. And I guess the last thing that we can go into as much or as little depth as you guys want, but Tamara came and did a great presentation on BIFA's trail mix. So kind of some of the activation that will be happening on the trails during BIFA. And one of them that we're most excited about, slightly concerned because we think it's going to be so popular, is up on Little Mountain. There'll be a kind of, you ever see one of those slides that you drop a ball and it goes ding, 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 but like a real life one of those with trees and all natural materials, and you can buy the wooden balls from the ice rink and kind of hike up there and send them down to this little maze. And so we think it's going to be actually extremely popular, and it was very successful in Switzerland when this artist Joe Scolari did it over there. So that's really exciting. There's going to be lots of different music. Trio will be back with up on Moonstone doing their thing a couple times. There's also another expedition that will be on Moonstone, and it's going to be these natural figurines, if you will, like, structures that are going to have gardens in them, and they'll be using wooden nails to put them together, and they're meant to kind of grow and then dissolve on their own. And so we're pretty excited to see how that goes and how it does.
How big are those?
So they look, these are like 4 feet in height, so they're significant. So it'll be cool.
Stay in place until they're
Until they, yeah.
time. It's gonna be like
Yeah, it might be a while. Yeah. So I think, we'll kind of see how it does and how it blooms with these mushrooms and plants and things like that, and whether they become like their own like little petri dishes of sorts, in the wild. And then there's on the Iowa.
Something you would say about it. Sure.
She asked if I needed talking points. I was like, no, I got this. She won't make that mistake again. At the Iowa Hill Trail, there is the edges of the ephemeral, where it's just like this spiral kind of maze that will be in there, and that'll be up for a couple weeks as well. So we're really excited. I think there was a lot of positivity through the activation that we're gonna be doing through this time and how to encourage people to go out to the trails and the open space and really enjoy it and find a lot of happiness and stuff like that. So that's good. There was some concern on like some of the trio, for example, of people setting up off trail and kind of disturbing the area off trail and trying to pull over stumps or things like that. But you know, we're gonna do the best we can to teach responsible tourism.
I think we talk about that every year. People staying on the trail. Thank you.
Of course.
Tourism office, do you have anything to add?
No meeting since our last meeting.
Okay. Creative arts. Did Jay just steal your thunder?
Well, Jay told us a lot about the activation outside of the Arts District that's going to be taking place, and it is pretty exciting. Shannon and Tamara, I think, will be completing the contract between the town and BCA. I think next week, if I'm following the threads, and I hope to participate in that. We've been meeting and reviewing language and terms. The Arts District Management Committee, which brings together not just BCA, but the partners of BCA, Eclipse Theater and Backstage, with a subcommittee within BCA, has been formed and is going through a training and orientation process and will begin working. Our next meeting is May 22nd, and we'll see where we are at that point in time.
It's great. I love hearing that group back together. Okay, CML advisory update.
Well, the legislative session is over this year. There it wasn't as interesting as past years that we've dealt with, but there will be some impacts to town. So I think in the next couple weeks and months, as a town, we'll evaluate the impacts of town. But I think good news on the CAST front. I think CAST was supportive in a lot of their positions, including killing the Yigby bill, which would allow religion and educational institutions kind of to build as they please on their parking lots. And so that bill died. I don't know if there's any others that are worth elevating right now.
I think maybe we should do a little update after this, like after we kind of get a handle on what's been passed and the impacts, and then we can give you more comprehensive.
That's great. Okay, social equity.
Minutes were in the packet.
Okay. Arts and Culture Master Plan Steering Committee.
I have a great update on that as well. I'm very excited to say that we met with Corona Insights and got approval on the survey for kind of a guest and resident sentiment on the arts. And that is going to be those mailers, those postcards, you'll see in your post office box and maybe out
On the ground.
top, maybe by the end of the week. So they're going to be going out on Thursday and Friday. So we're going to start, although we're eliciting feedback from all of our out of town guests and the greater county, we're going to start with our residents first. So they'll be going to our PO boxes. Mostly because we want to get as much daylight between that survey and the resident sentiment survey that is only Breckenridge, which is slated for October. And so we wanted to get that out immediately, kind of make sure that the response rate and there wasn't any glitches. And then we'll be putting it out to each of the partner organizations mailing lists and try to get a greater feedback. I think some of the real huge successes of it is being able to slice it by demographic, if they're residents or out of town. There's a couple really poignant questions that will help us move forward in the master planning process for the arts. So all good stuff, and it's nice to see positive momentum.
So for the out of town, it sounds like you're going to send it to the arts organization's mailing list. Will there be other out of town people contacted? Like, is there a general mailing list that's not necessarily arts folks from that? I'm just wondering, like, what does the family who normally comes here to mountain bike, what are they interested in seeing from the arts as well? Are we gonna be able to reach them?
No. No is the answer, but we do have, I think Lucy would correct me, but maybe like 50,000 email addresses that from the snow sculptures that I think we're gonna be able to use that.
Okay.
But obviously the person that comes in mountain bikes and goes home, we don't know who that is really. And so I think that we have a start on it, but it's gonna be mostly to email addresses that are connected to the art, the art.
But you're saying we might be able to use the snow sculpture?
That's right.
That's by far enough people. That seems like a huge number.
I might have been off by a 0 or 2.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your incredibly accurate summary.
Just zeros, Jay, don't worry about that.
Before or after the decimal point?
Okay, great. Any other matters?
I'll highlight what Lucy mentioned. They have the BREC 101 trivia for frontline employees next Wednesday, the 21st. That's during social equity, so I won't be able to make it, but it sounds like they have around 100 frontline employees usually attend. These are sometimes younger folks newer to town, so if anyone was available, wanted to slap on your town council name tag and float around, I think that'd be a great opportunity to learn what some of our frontline and newer community members are experiencing.
What time's that start?
Hayden sent an email yesterday. It's at Main Street Broken Compass, I think 5:30 to 7 before trivia starts at 7, so probably showing up before 7 would be good.
So it's the Main Street one, not on Airport.
I'll double check the email from Peyton. to
I'll
make sure,
double check.
I'm almost.
I can double check.
Any other matters?
I was able to attend a meeting with Scott Jackman in the Streets Department. And we heard a presentation from a national nonprofit called Non-Toxic Neighborhoods. And this is an organization that advises communities about converting from toxic chemical weed treatments and using organic methods for controlling weeds and dealing with parks, golf courses, public right-of-ways. And it was a really interesting program. I think there'll be some follow-up on that coming up for getting rid of the things that we know are bad for us.
That's great.
You got anything? Okay, I was gonna congratulate the golf course on looking so amazing that it's actually opening next week on May 16th. Along those same lines, the Little Red Schoolhouse is having their annual golf tournament, and they're in need of some more teams to sign up. So it's June 12th, and you can find that information on their website. So hopefully we can support them if anybody out there plays golf or just wants to walk around the course. It's gorgeous. So we can do that.
Opens Friday.
Yeah, it's whatever the 16th is.
Yeah.
Friday the 16th, this week. That's why you're correcting me. I understand.
Soon.
This week, the 16th. Awesome. It looks amazing. I can't believe what it looks like after the winter. So well done to them. All right. Any final things? We have our schedule of meetings. Anything else, Shannon?
I think so. I just will say I appreciate all the stuff you guys did today. I know it was a long meeting and there was a lot of material, so thank you.
We appreciate all the work that went into it. So thank you guys very much. Anything else? Great. Meeting adjourned.